Hello boys and girls, this is Voodoo Magic the Retro Game-a-Holic bringing you again another game. This is the second game between MRJobe and Fritz Ridnuewr. Fritz Ridnuewr playing black. MRJobe leads out with the king's pawn to e4. This is immediately countered by the e5 move of blacks. Now MRJobe has decided that he's going to play this a little differently. He goes ahead and takes the pawn. A very odd move. It's not one of his regular moves, nor is it anybody's regular move. It's kind of strange, actually, if you ask me. However, that's what happened in the game. So, Fritz Ridnuewr, he goes ahead and challenges. Now, I don't know why he challenged with this particular piece, but MRJobe actually doesn't even pay attention to that. He just moves up his pawn to protect it. Now Fritz Ridnuewr, he doesn't want to blow up this space too often, so he goes ahead and moves his queen up. So he can't actually take the pawn right now. MRJobe decides to move the bishop up to block that, and so that if he wants to take it, he can. So Fritz Ridnuewr takes the opportunity of taking the pawn, and knowing that he can't really retake without his pawn being lost, so MRJobe just pushes up his pawn. Now Fritz Ridnuewr decides to move up his pawn, and this is the one of the interesting parts of the game. MRJobe decides to take the pawn to his right. Fritz Ridnuewr he wants to keep his pawns together, so he goes ahead and takes the pawn with his queen. Now this is a very dangerous move, if you ask me. In about 7 different ways it's dangerous, because MRJobe decides to move his knight up to attack the queen. Fritz Ridnuewr now his queen's in wide open, and he needs to get it back, and he also needs to give himself the ability to castle. So what he does right now is he moves this piece. Actually, he moves it to b5. Now in this particular circumstance, he can actually move it back here anytime he wants. So Fritz Ridnuewr plays his bishop. Now notice his bishop is not protected at this time, so MRJobe takes advantage of that fact. Fritz Ridnuewr says, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and protect it this way. So MRJobe just decides to leave his knight there for some strange reason. Fritz Ridnuewr plays the well, he doesn't play anything yet. He decides to go ahead and move up his knight. Now MRJobe thinks to himself, and he considers several different options. And one thing that he wants to do is he wants to get this rook open, so he goes ahead and takes the pawn on b7, attacking the rook. The rook really doesn't have anywhere else to go, and so Fritz Ridnuewr goes ahead and plays his queen back, because he realizes that once MRJobe takes this and converts it to a queen, he would have just taken this piece immediately afterwards and put the king in check. So Fritz Ridnuewr now is guarding that piece. So MRJobe decides, Fritz Ridnuewr goes ahead and takes the queen, the bishop down, so that he can castle. However, the castling is totally thwarted by MRJobe taking the pawn on g7, attacking the rook. Now he cannot castle now, because he would be castling through check. He'd also be castling in a very dangerous way if he were to try that. So Fritz Ridnuewr decides that he's going to save his rook by moving it over. MRJobe now goes in for the kill. What's he going to do? He's about to lose a knight or thereabouts. We'll see what happens. MRJobe seizes the opportunity to not only protect his pawn, but to kill a piece outright. Fritz Ridnuewr is not doing well. Now Fritz Ridnuewr is protecting his pawn with his his knight. So Fritz Ridnuewr decides to he's going to go ahead and attack the knight. Okay. So MRJobe decides that he's going to go ahead and take that queen and put the king in check. The queen was causing a little bit too much problems, and so the king goes ahead and goes down, but then MRJobe decides to slide up his queen way down here and attacking the knight, which is really already guarded. Fritz Ridnuewr cannot take the pawn because this is really a pain in the butt, but Fritz Ridnuewr goes ahead and takes the knight. The knight in shining armor from a long time ago. Take me to a castle far away. So that's MRJobe decides to take the pawn over here and attack the knight. He's always attacking. If you notice what's going on here, he's always attacking. So MRJobe has two queens, if you see here. So Fritz Ridnuewr is going to have a tough time with this. And he attacks this, but it was quite a dumb thing to do because MRJobe just comes in with the queen. There's a lot of danger here. So Fritz Ridnuewr goes ahead and takes the pawn because he can. MRJobe comes in with the queen to attack the king. He moves it back. And, you know, he has a pretty good setup here, Fritz. It's going to be kind of difficult for MRJobe to thwart the mechanism that Fritz Ridnuewr has done to help protect his pieces. But he finds a way to put him in check anyway. Now notice there's no way of blocking this. He can move this up, and that's what he does. He actually moves this up to block it. MRJobe can't take it without losing it. So what does he do? Who knows? I mean, he just takes the pawn. What did you think he was going to do? Okay, I'll give you 10 seconds to figure out the move that really changes the course of the game with Fritz Ridnuewr. I was very proud of him for doing this move. It's he decides to take his rook and kill the queen. But, you know, this is the first time Fritz Ridnuewr has ever made a move like this, because most of the time it's MRJobe making moves like this. But Fritz Ridnuewr is going to have a little bit of a showing here. MRJobe decides to protect the bishop. Of course, it was already protected, so he didn't really need to make that move. Fritz Ridnuewr attacks the rook. He moves it over. He attacks the rook again, but it's okay because it's guarded by the knight. But MRJobe doesn't like that, so he goes ahead and takes the knight. But now Fritz Ridnuewr is about to lose his rook, so he moves his king back to protect both pieces. But it doesn't matter because MRJobe takes the bishop with the pawn. Now the rook here is pinned to the king, so the king moves out of the way, but MRJobe decides to check the king. This is getting very dangerous for him. He goes ahead and backs off down that way, and MRJobe, now he's pinned once again, and MRJobe goes ahead and takes this opportunity to move the rook up. Now what does he do? He can move this over. He can move the pawn up. But if he moves the pawn up, he can just take it. You know, he can just take. MRJobe can take the pawn with the bishop. So he's in kind of dire straits. Not the band. So what can he do? You know, he can't move this. So he decides just to move his king back. Now I think he probably should have pushed the pawn, but you know, everybody has their own opinions of everything. The reason for that is checkmate in one. Probably the best game Fritz Ridnuewr has ever played, and he did it against MRJobe, who is I should be very proud. You should be very proud of Fritz Ridnuewr for taking this time to do this game and show us all his power and his skill. Anyway, so thank you for watching this. This is Voodoo Magic. I hope you enjoyed this. Me going over this game with Fritz Ridnuewr and MRJobe. So once again, MRJobe, the dominant player, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to be seeing you all again very, very soon. Until then, bye bye.